Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the TAM Union High School District Candidate Forum, live streamed to our audience on YouTube. I'm Tara Topier, the superintendent of the school district. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Marin County for moderating tonight's event. I would also like to acknowledge Marin Promise for their assistance in promoting this event to the community. This year, the League of Women Voters has been celebrating 100 years of following a mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of their vision of a democracy where every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League is strictly nonpartisan organization and never supports or opposes individual candidates or political parties. We encourage our audience to submit their questions to tuhsd@marinlwv.org, which you can also see on the screen. And now I hand over to our moderator, League member, Lori Nardone.
Hi, my name is Lori Nardone, a member of the League of Women Voters of Marin County and your moderator for tonight's forum. The Community Media Center of Marin is off-screen providing tech support. Thank you for joining us tonight for this forum featuring candidates for the Tamalpails Union High School District Board. Thank you to the TAM Union High School District for inviting the League to host this event. We are honored to be here. Slide 2, please. And we want to thank our community outreach partner, Marin Promise. If you have slide 3. So with me, our League members, Connie Siegenthaler as timekeeper, and Jill Sampson and Greg Brockbank as question sorters, with Nancy Bell and Dee Dee Buttori for technical support. Thank you to all. The League is a trusted membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. In addition to promoting voter education, the League participates in advocacy for issues and may take positions on issues that arise in ballot measures. I would like to remind everyone that the candidates have both agreed to participate under ground rules set for this forum. In order to ensure impartiality, it is the League's policy that candidate forum team members not live in the voting jurisdiction the candidates represent, nor can they be actively involved in a candidate's campaign. Before we get started, there are some details to review that will help you interact with this session. Tonight's forum is being live streamed on the League's YouTube channel. The viewing public is invited to submit questions to the email address displayed on the screen, tuhsd@marinlwv.org. Through our partnership with the Community Media Center of Marin, this forum is being recorded and will be posted on our website at marinlwv.org. For broader community access, a gavel-to-gavel production will be rebroadcast on CMCM TV's Channel 30. Days and times will be posted on our website. Now I would like to briefly explain the roles of the timekeeper and the question sorter. To assure everyone stays within the allotted time, you will see a box designated clock. At the appropriate time, the box will turn yellow, indicating the candidate has 30 seconds remaining for their response. When the box turns red, the candidate should complete their sentence. As mentioned, you may submit questions to the email address displayed on the screen anytime during the forum. Our question sorters are on standby to review incoming questions. And I want to assure you, the question sorters do not censure the questions, but rather they screen the questions to avoid duplication or anything that might be inappropriate. If you do not recognize your question, it might have been combined with other questions on the same topic. Slide 4. There are 5 candidates running for 2 seats on the TAM Union High School District Board. The candidates with us tonight are Mandy Downing, Leslie Harlander, Brandon Johnson, Karen Lobica, and Tiffany Mcelroy. The candidates have been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. After that, the candidates will each have 1 minute to answer each question. To be fair, I will rotate the order in which they respond to the questions. For opening statements, we'll now begin with Mandy Downing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mandy Downing. I'm a 17-year Larkspur resident, and I've spent the past 11 years volunteering in the lower schools, everything from site council, headroom parent, serving hot lunch, event planning, you name it, I did it. And when my kids entered high school, I refocused my attention and energy towards understanding and considering board governance and district policy. And I learned that our current board has a lack of trustees who have current kids in the district. And I think that's more important now than ever as we are in learning in COVID, be it distance learning, hybrid, in-person learning. We need to have day-to-day understanding of the students and teachers' experiences so that we can bring that knowledge to bear for constructive changes that might be necessary at the board level. I spent my career in sales and learned early on that the best salespeople are not the ones that talk, but rather listen to their customers' needs so you can bring a solution to meet those needs to the table. And along with listening skills from my career, I learned how to collaborate, how to communicate, negotiate, and lead. And I think those are all qualities that would lend me to be an effective board member, trustee. I am approaching the issues facing the district holistically and really see four major ones right now, including but not limited to achieving fiscal stability and getting Measure M passed, doing an overhaul of curriculum and culture towards equity, openly addressing a potential name change at Drake/High School 1327, as well as teaching equally for all students in COVID. And I've earned some fantastic endorsements, that of Cos Marin exclusive bullet endorsement, Marin County Young Democrats, the Mayor of Larkspur, the Mayor of Corte Madera, and various. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie, if you would unmute yourself.
Well, first, thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum. My name is Leslie Harlander, and I'm running for re-election to the board seat. And I'm running because I'm very passionate about public education, and especially in our district. I, too, am a product of public education. I was born and raised in the Bay Area. After earning degrees at Berkeley and UCSF, I was a registered nurse for many years before returning to school to earn my degree in civil engineering at San Francisco State University. And so for the past 25 years, I've worked as a project manager of large engineering and Superfund sites. My children benefited from the public education in our county, and they all graduated from TAM High. When my son graduated just 2 years ago, I really appreciated even more how much the school district does for all of our children. While he was at TAM High, I was elected to the site council at that school. The site council is the local governing body of any of our high schools. After that, I moved on and I was elected to the school board, and I've been on the school board for 5 years. And I'm running again because I'm not ready to stop. There's still more work to do. And public education is so important, and it's especially important now. So thank you, League of Women Voters. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you.
Thank you. Brandon, would you unmute yourself?
Sure can, yeah. First and foremost, I just want to thank you all for having us and giving us this platform. Since I have the platform, I want to do two things, which is first and foremost, acknowledge that the land that I am sitting on is on the traditional land of the Coast Miwok people who survived cultural genocide through colonization and missionization. I'd like to honor the ancestors past, present, and still to come of them as well. Second thing I'd like to do while I have the platform is also acknowledge that there still is no justice for Breonna Taylor. So I just want us all to keep that in mind. My name is Brandon Johnson. I'm an alumni of the district of Drake High School, what I call HS 1327. I think I'm the only one out of us to graduate from the district. My day job is as a web developer, and I also coach basketball within the district at Redwood High School. But I'm running to give voice to the young folks who are looking for transformation in the educational system. I'm a community organizer and activist that works with students and recent alumni on pushing forward school issues, addressing diversity, equity, inclusion, student wellness, restorative justice, certainly advocating for Measure M, and environmental sustainability as well as we move towards climate catastrophe. And I believe that there's a huge opportunity for all of these issues within the district. And I believe that with a lot of them, we're at a tipping point, and we could really be forward thinking and move towards a really positive direction, or we can stay where we're at. So I'm running to make sure that it tips in that positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, if you would unmute yourself.
Am I good? You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Hi, I'm Karen Lobica. I am seeking re-election to the TAM Union High School District Board. I was appointed last August of 2019, one of 8 candidates being considered. And I'm seeking re-election to ensure that all of our current and future students have access to the same outstanding education my children received. I am the proud mom of 2 2020 Redwood High School graduates who lost their senior year experience or senior spring experience, and who are now experiencing a very different freshman year, kind of at college, kind of upstairs in the bedroom. I believe our schools are key to closing the achievement gaps and providing opportunity. I have been active in public education for over 12 years. Beyond my experience as a TAM Union High School District trustee, I served on the TAM Union High School District Fiscal Advisory Committee since it was formed in 2017. I was part of the team that identified nearly $6 million in annual budget cuts while minimizing impacts to instructional programs. I chaired the successful Measure J Parcel Tax campaign in 2018, which secured $5 million in locally controlled funding to preserve teachers and programs. I was president of Redwood High School Foundation, president of the Kentfield Schools District PTA. I've partnered with teachers, parents, the greater community, and I currently serve since 2016 on the advisory council for Bridge the Gap in Marin City. These times are challenging. I'm committed to returning the district to budget stability through fiscal responsibility, transparency, and passing Measure M.
Thank you. Sorry, we're out of time. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. And Tiffany, if you unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. And yes, thank you so much for having us this evening. My name is Tiffany Mcelroy. I was raised in Santa Monica, California. I studied 19th century history at UCLA with a concentration on the United States. My career has been as a television news journalist, which has taken me all over the country. I've worked everywhere. I moved to Marin about 4 years ago from the East Coast with my daughter. And we moved here sight unseen because we had heard what an incredible school district was here. Now I'm an instructor at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, where I teach a course called Race, Gender, and Class, including LGBTQ plus and persons with disabilities in the media, which I love. I love teaching. I have a daughter who's at high school 1327, and since she's been there, she fired me from coming to school after a certain age, but I got on the committee, the Drake Parents for Racial Equity, Racial Equality. So I've been on that for over a year now. And I've decided to run for a seat on the TAM school board because I'm committed to maintaining that high level of education in our district, not for some students, but for all students. I believe in a new level of fiscal responsibility and transparency. I believe it's what the stakeholders are looking for and that they deserve. We need to make sure that high quality academic programs in our schools, along with support services and retaining our excellent teaching staff, are not given that due to lack of funding. So I am a supporter of Measure M. Maintaining the level of education is critical, especially with the unknown duration of distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a little tricky with the clock. Good job. Okay, so we are now ready for the questions, and we're going to go in order. So this time we're going to begin with Leslie. And the first question we're going to ask is, as the country reckons with longstanding injustice and inequities for people of color, how would you describe moving from being race neutral or colorblind to anti-racist? Can you give an example of a policy or practice shift that is anti-racist?
Well, first I'll describe being race neutral. Being race neutral is really denying and honoring and celebrating our differences and our diversity and each individual of who we are and where we came from in terms of our background, where we were born, our culture. And we often have, I think we've come to realize, I hope, as a country and locally, that saying you're colorblind is actually very disrespectful. You're basically saying you're white or you're not white. And so we're part of this, and that we're an institution within our community. And so we too have to look within ourselves and our practices to really take a hard look at everything we do, because it can be very subtle. And we just recently passed an anti-racist policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Brandon. If you want to unmute yourself. And if you need me to reread the question or anything, just let me know.
You just read it for me one more time.
Yeah. So it's asking, as the country reckons with longstanding injustice and inequities for people of color, how would you describe moving from being race neutral or colorblind to being anti-racist? Can you give an example of a policy or a practice shift that is anti-racist?
Yeah, sure. You said I have a minute for this. Is that right?
A minute. Yeah. Now you have about 50 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, so color blindness, I'll try to go through this real quick. Color blindness is basically saying that you see everyone the same, which we know is not true, because that would mean that we don't know how socialization works, right? Because socialization works in a way where we are influenced with our surroundings, and we live in a white supremacist surrounding. And there are inequities. And if we're saying that we see everyone the same way, that we're not acknowledging the differences and what folks are experiencing. So that, as opposed to being anti-racist, you have to acknowledge that difference in order to move towards equity, right? You have to acknowledge that folks are not treated the same. They don't start at the same level in order to make anti-racist policy and to bring that back into balance.
Great, thank you. Okay, next person to answer that is Karen. Oh, you want to unmute? Yep.
I just did. So I'm actually very proud the board just passed an anti-racist resolution, which showed our steadfast commitment to equality, equity, and anti-racism in our school district. And we are working with about 100 people in our community, many of which are students and parents, to develop policy that will address the inequities in our school. And a couple examples of policy: we are reviewing our curriculum, or we will be reviewing our curriculum for equity and representation of BIPOC communities. We already are making a direct effort in hiring more diverse staff. We have a goal of hiring more in the next year, 2, 5 years.
Okay. Yep. You'll have more opportunity. Okay. Tiffany, would you like to take that one? And you have to unmute.
Can you repeat again really quick?
Yeah, it's a long question. I know. As the county reckons with longstanding injustice and inequities for people of color, how would you describe moving from being race neutral or colorblind to being anti-racist? Can you give an example of a policy or a practice shift that is anti-racist?
Well, I feel like, our systems weren't set up for people of color for sure. So right now, I think we're in the midst of it. So there aren't really examples of anti-racism happening yet. I think there are places of work, people, government and school systems that are coming up with anti-racist policies, but nothing has been implemented yet. And even the one that we have here in TAM that just passed, there was a lot of reluctance, there was a lot of passion and upset with stakeholders that were calling in. I was on the call. So I'm waiting to see what that will mean for here, for the district. What is that going to look like? What is it going to mean? What are the tangibles? So everything is an ideal right now. So I don't have an example to give until it starts. And I really hope for our students, for my child, for all of our children, that it starts ASAP.
Thank you. Okay, and then we will go to Mandy. And you are.
Yes. I think when you move from being colorblind to anti-racist, you go from seeing people as one to seeing them for who they are. And I think an example of a policy that has changed at TAM Union is last year, prior to the death of George Floyd. My daughter had the opportunity to take a class called Ethnic Studies and Contemporary Issues, which was formerly simply a club, which was entitled SOAR, which is Students Against Anti-Racism. It actually turned into an elective. We have very rich electives, and she got to take it. And it transformed her as a person and her understanding of all different people and situations and legacies. So I think that's one way that we changed prior to the death of George Floyd in March. And then to enhance what I think Karen and Leslie said, we, under the resolution, are going to have a subcommittee, a racial justice task force that's going to have subcommittees to work on curriculum and professional training, et cetera. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So for our next question, we're going to start with Brandon Johnson. And this question has to do with SROs. So there's been a lot of discussion about maintaining or eliminating the role of school resource officers, also known as SROs, in Marin schools. So what is your view of the use of SROs in your district? And you're muted. You have to unmute.
Sorry, yeah, I'm 100%. I'm 100% for removing them. I applaud San Rafael City School Board for removing their 2 full-time SROs. Especially the BIPOC students do not have a good experience. We know anecdotally that they don't have a good experience, and we know that broadly from the national data as well. I look at it in terms of, instead of using punitive measures and criminalizing our students, let's use that opportunity to deepen the relationship with them. Let's look at ways in which we can use trauma-informed practices, restorative justice, and make sure that we dig deep into why they committed this infraction or did this act. What's their story, and how can we reconcile it? How can we have both accountability and forgiveness and restorative justice? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Karen Lobica, do you want to take that one?
Laura, you're doing such a good job with pronouncing my name, by the way. A+.
I'm going to keep doing it that way.
Well, thank you. Yes, and I completely echo what Brandon just said, and he said it very eloquently in terms of the trauma and anxiety that SROs can have on campus. In TAM Union High School District, we actually don't employ or pay for SROs. We do have campus supervisors who are unarmed. They don't arrest. They don't discipline. For the most part, they have positive relationships with the students on campus. We do have a community or a relationship with our community police that sometimes we do need to call in if there's a sexual assault or if there was a bomb threat a couple of years ago. So, and we've also brought them on with our 2P program, which is anti-vaping program. So, but I don't think they have a place to, we don't need armed policemen on our campuses, and we don't.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tiffany Mcelroy.
Thank you. I'm echoing Karen and Brendan as well. I don't believe that SROs are needed on campus. I think that for some people, SROs might seem like a safe haven, and for others, it can bring up real trauma and it can bring up really a lot of fear. In fact, my daughter came crying to me today because of the Breonna Taylor case and what happened. And so the feeling of police officers is not mutual for everybody. I think that there's more to kids than just getting in trouble. I think that there are other ways. The restorative justice route is the best route. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes at kids' homes. If cops need to be called because something happens on campus, that's a completely different story. But having this presence of law enforcement on a school, it seems the opposite. School should be a place where kids aren't afraid to be. They should get to be there where it's safe. It's a safe haven, and they don't have to walk around and have that fear. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mandy Downing, would you like to answer that?
There's not that much to add. Everyone said it so eloquently, although, I think when you hear the term SRO, the notion of a uniformed armed police presence comes to mind. And I don't think that has any purpose in school. And I think it can be haunting and intimidating to many students. And I'm not quite sure what the purpose would be of that. I do think that there is a place for people who are in a position of, they're confided in, they're trusted, they can be a source of kids to go and be with if they're having issues with other kids, if they're having issues at home. I really think that it's an opportunity to have a confidant on campus versus a uniformed police officer. So that's.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie, you want to unmute? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think we're all in agreement on this subject. I sometimes have been concerned when I hear the term get rid of SROs, and it's really more what the role of the SRO, like what we've said before, is that having somebody that already has a relationship with the school that they do call in the very unusual event that they need the SRO. But, having said all that, I do want to share, I agree that this, when a student maybe is exhibiting some sort of a behavior problem, they need to be treated, holistically and with our wellness staff and counselors. And it's not a punitive situation. But when I went to an anti-racist forum, hearing from some of the BIPOC students saying how traumatized they were and reflecting on the fact we don't have SROs on campus is concerning. And so I'm glad that the district is using that opportunity, in fact, to have a subcommittee that's looking at the use of SROs, how the district uses them, as well as restorative justice. That's all part of the anti-racist resolution that we passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Karen, we will start with you for the next question. We're going to switch over to finances. So how would you, as a board member, promote greater understanding of the financial challenges public schools are facing under a growing number of unfunded mandates, such as pension cost increases and underfunded special education requirements? That was to you, Karen. Lobica.
Read the first part of the, how would we explain
How
it?
would you as a board member promote greater understanding of the financial challenges public schools are facing under a growing number of unfunded mandates, such as pension cost increases and underfunded special ed requirements?
Right. That's such a great question, because it is so hard for people to understand. We give you more. For the parcel taxes, why is there a 3% increase each year? It is hard to explain that these mandated costs for pension and special education continue to increase without any extra funding for our students and our schools. We are a locally funded district, whereas we benefit from our property taxes and the parcel tax. So it's important and people also need to understand that our enrollment has grown by 30% over the last 10, 12 years. We've got the equivalent of another high school worth of students, an extra 1,300 students. We are being forced to pay these mandated costs and yet still run a district with an extra 1,300 students.
Thank you. Okay, Tiffany, would you like to answer that one?
Okay. Yeah, I think the idea, I think many people, including myself, I felt there was a lot for me to learn about the cost or the idea of pensions. I think a lot of people say, well, why does all this money go to pensions? And they get really upset at the board, but the board is mandated to give that money over. And I think the real issue with pensions starts with heading up Sacramento, and the pension problem is a problem all over the state. And so I think there's just a lack of information about why the money is going where it's going, and with special ed and with the pensions. And the pension, teachers' pension appears to be a problem just right out the bat. And it's been something that has come up a lot. And I just think that there's not a lot of information out there for stakeholders that they just don't know that it's one of those things that is out of the board's control. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Mandy Downing.
Thank you. I think one angle of the question was, how would you communicate to the community these constraints that are placed upon the board in the budget? And I think one thing the district has done lately that's been successful in opening up issues to the community is having forums where people have a voice, whether it's been forums on the name change of High School 1327/Drake, or forums around doing some of this equity, anti-racist work. So I think having forums would be a great opportunity to explain some of the budgetary constraints, limitations, and mandates placed on a school district of 5,000 students, and how that really constrains our ability to provide the fantastic education that we are able to without the addition of necessary parcel taxes and foundation money to augment a shortfall in the budget when 85% of the current budget goes to personnel today.
Thank you. And Leslie Harlander.
Well, I think the question had to do with how, as a board member, we would inform the public. And I think doing this would be a kind of a concentric approach where we first actually have worked with the parents and the immediate community. And even there, people are busy. They get a ton of email every day. So to really influence change as well as informing, it can be from direct email to getting people to the website, having meetings. The district had 20 plus meetings a couple of years ago. And then beyond that, we have to remember that we have a greater community that don't have children in the district. And that would be worth going to established community meetings and reaching the public that way. The district does participate in the Joint Legislative Action Committee, and that's a way of trying to implement action and implement change at the state level. So all these together will help the community unite and hopefully make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Brandon, you want to unmute?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I mean, I think that forums are certainly a great idea. I'm loving the fact that Zoom is around now, because going to all these different board meetings, it's just so much more accessible for so many people. You can do it anywhere, and it's fantastic. So I think we'll get more participation, hopefully, post COVID than we did pre-COVID. But yeah, I think the solution is deepening the relationship with the community, like Leslie said. I think even folks that don't have children, like she said, it's still, I think, an obligation of community members to really stay in tune with what's going on in terms of the children's education within that community, because that goes, they're intrinsically linked. right? So I think that that's both of those are extremely important.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany, yep, we're starting with you for the next question. Okay, in relation to students, so how will you regularly connect with the students at the school sites to hear their stories, their experiences, their concerns, or their successes? And how will you represent them at the board level?
I would go to the schools. I would go to different schools and I would meet up with students and teachers to find out what's going on. I would love to build some type of connection of trust that students would trust me to tell me what's really happening for them in their schools, in their classes, with their teachers, with their courses. What do they feel that their schools need, or what are they missing, or what is working, what is not working? I feel like connection, and that's one of my things, is connecting with people. But without that, we don't know. We're making decisions for people that, if you're making decisions for people that you're not talking to, it just seems like it doesn't, like it's just not going to work. So I think it's really important to go around to each school, whether that's assemblies, having my email available to them and responding, and just letting them know that I'm here to listen. And then, taking their concerns into consideration as a board member.
Great, thank you. Mandy?
Thank you. When we were going through there was about 8 hours of MCOE training about, being a pre-trustee training. And one of the things that you hear time and again is that your first and foremost role and responsibility is representing the best interests of the students at all times as the board member. And I feel fortunate to have a gateway to them right now through having kids, a freshman and a junior, and really understanding how they communicate with each other these days. It's upped my social media game a lot. I used to be a very private person prior to entering this race, and it's really putting yourself out there through social media and the ways that they connect. So that's one way if we're still in distance learning and COVID. And obviously if the world opens up and we are fortunate enough to go back in person, it's absolutely being on campuses with them. Redwood is my backyard, and it has been for 17 years. So I've been surrounded by Redwood students since the day we moved into our house prior to my daughter being born. So I think it's absolutely being in the mix with them if that's possible.
Thank you. Leslie? Mute. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes, we have 5 high schools, and our student population brings a full range of students with, some students have a lot of resources. They have a lot of family support. We have students that do not have the family support, and they have a lack of resources. So with that, it's really important to visit the campuses. Our superintendent has made days where the trustees are able to go and actually sit in classrooms and have exchanges with the students. And like what others have said, we do get emails from students from time to time. We also have student trustees, and we use that as not only a civic lesson, but they're there. We have student trustees from each of the campuses, and they report to the board every 2 weeks, and they bring what the issues are on the campus for the students. But like everyone has said, visiting the campus and being open to them and learning and hearing from students that are really represent the full range of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Brandon? You are muted. There you go.
Here we go. Yeah, I think that this is one of the most important things. I work with students a lot just within my own activism. And they're extremely creative well, first of all, they're the first ones to identify issues because they're the ones that are experiencing them. They're the closest to the issues. And they come up with these great creative solutions to solve them as well. And so if we don't have that relationship with them, then we're really taking away our best source of finding and solving these issues. So I'm huge into staying in contact with students. I think that there should be certainly a baseline relationship between the school board and the students. There should be consistent communication. And yeah, I just don't think that there's very few things that are more important than student involvement and allowing them to have some agency and co-create these systems.
Thank you. Karen.
So that's why we're here, those 5,200 students. And it's the best feeling to know that we're moving forward with their agenda as ours and their best interest at the center of everything that we do. As Leslie mentioned, we have 5 student trustees, and I'm really fortunate to be the liaison from the board in working with these 5 trustees. They're so interesting. And the group that we had last year all graduated at the same time, but boy, did they bring fire and brimstone to the meeting sometimes with their ideas and their passions and their thoughts. And it was just great. I love visiting the schools. We can't just show up as trustees. There is a protocol to that. But visiting the schools along with the principals or another teacher is invaluable, and you really get a sense of what goes on in the classroom. I'm also on the advisory council, as I mentioned before, with Bridge the Gap, and I tutor and work a lot of different programs. That gives me great insight as well.
Thank you. So I want to remind our viewers, if you have questions, that you can submit them to the email address that is somewhere on your screen right now. And I lost one of them on here. Hold on. I'll come back to that. Okay, so let me ask next. And we're going to start with Mandy. What do you see as the basic purpose of the public schools? And what is the role of the governing board in the fulfillment of that purpose?
Great question. I think the basic role of public schools is to educate and produce well-rounded humans into the world. And that's not exclusively academic by any stretch of the imagination. It's providing electives that help them explore their interests and curiosities and grow into the people that they might become. It's about providing a space where they have comfort and security. Whether they have that at home or not, it should be a place of comfort for them to go to school. And how the board can facilitate that goes back to understanding the demands placed on them, their desires, their challenges, and how we as a community and a board and the sites can raise up and meet them where they are and provide them what they need in all realms, academically, sports, electives, clubs, so that they feel enriched when they're at school and graduate, have high graduation rates as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, unmute. Yep.
Thank you. I think the definition of the public education is equity. That's what it's based on, and that's what we have to keep working at. By nature, public education means every single child deserves an education and has a right to education. So a child that comes that's disabled, we go to that child to help them learn. We provide whatever additional needs they may have in order to be able to see the blackboard or to make it from one class to the next. This really hits hard, and it's really comes home to us when it comes to the racial work that we've been talking about. The underserved children, everyone has a right to education, and it's up to us to see what they need. Behavioral problems, all the full range of educational background, we go to them and we lift them up and give them an equitable chance to succeed and be happy and to get the warmth and attention that they deserve.
Thank you. Okay, Brandon, unmute.
Every time. I agree wholeheartedly with what Leslie just said. Yeah, it's the public deciding that of the utmost importance is every single child having the opportunity to have an education, and one of the roles is certainly to teach these children our highest values that we know of, the highest values of the community. And in the hopes that they become great community members and global citizens as well. But it's about equity. I think Leslie said it perfectly. That's the role of the public school.
Great. Okay, Karen.
I couldn't have said it better than Leslie and Brandon just described the role of the public education. So I'll focus a little bit more on what the role of the board is in providing this. So I think the role of the board is to set the vision and the mission of creating that kind of student that we are talking about. We were working on the mission statement and the graduate profile with our student trustees at the end of, well, I should say pre-COVID and a little bit into quarantine, I believe. Upon graduation, students have the opportunity, knowledge, skills to successfully pursue a college and career of their choosing independently and contribute positively to local and broader communities. Hold them to high standards, all of them. Even those who need help, we still need to hold them to high standards and set them on a mission with the vision that we've laid out for them.
Great, thank you. Tiffany?
Yeah, ideally, public education, is bringing it equitable, because it's bringing kids from all facets of life together, all racial backgrounds, socioeconomic, and we're saying, idealistically, hopefully this is, can happen, that we are giving them, an equitable education. And so they're getting all of this to go out into the world. Something I want to quote someone, Nicole Hannah-Jones from the 1619 Project was talking about education, and she says that public schools are one of the last frontiers in American society where we have the chance to intimately mix along racial and class lines, that this is the greatest gift we can give as citizens, to have our children educated together in common free schools. And I think she just put it so beautifully. And I think that's really what it's about is there's so many differences, and we can send our children out into the world better people. I truly believe that.
Thank you. Leslie, we're going to start with you for the next one. And so there's been some questions come up about, there's a wide population here in Marin. So what are the issues that you think the LGBTQ students face, and how can you support them as a school board member? And to piggyback on that, additionally, how do you see supporting transgender, non-binary students? Are there any specific policy examples that you can give?
Actually, I think that's very near and dear to my heart. I have a family member who's transgender, and it's an incredibly difficult and courageous thing to go through, and I can't even imagine. And we have to be very, very sensitive. The same way I'm learning from our BIPOC students about microaggressions, we have to be very, very aware that things that may seem very small to us have a huge impact. At the board level a few years ago, we had a big discussion about changing the language in some of our policies using pronoun they. And to hear the students come forward and describe to us, but the part that was unnerving was how many students came forward that were representing other students, because our transgender students were afraid to come forward. So I see this akin to what we're doing with anti-racist work, that we need to keep our eyes open and make whatever changes we need to.
Thank you. Okay, Brandon, mute.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Certainly making facilities accessible, especially to non-binary and trans. Making sure that those spaces are inclusive, I think is a huge thing. I don't think that you can solve these problems without addressing patriarchy. So that's, I think, one big thing within the educational system. and teaching folks that are not of the LGBTQ community how they express their form of coloniality and patriarchy, right? It has to be, the heavy lifting has to be on that end, right? But also on the back end too of trauma-informed practices, making sure that we have the support systems for the LGBTQ community that have, are, and inevitably will go through lots of trauma, especially throughout those high school years.
Thank you. Karen.
Similar to our BIPOC student issues, it's part of the work that has been going and needs to continue to take place as it relates to training. I think training of our teachers, our staff, our admin is critical. Sensitivity training and awareness training and language training. I think also offering support to these students, whether it be through clubs, the wellness center, our counselors, even our career and college counselors need to have this kind of training to understand. I just really encourage all of us to continue to listen and to hear their issues so that we can continue to develop policies and support systems for them.
Thank you. Tiffany.
Yeah, I think number one would be education. Education to letting people know how does someone want to be referred to, and that it's okay, normalizing it. I think even more so that it's not so different. It's just a person, that's who they are. That's who they are, and to not make such a big deal out of it. I know there's the LGBTQ club at High School 1327. My daughter attends sometimes, and she said that's a safe place where kids can go and they can talk and do whatever, just be themselves, basically. But I think it's also important to have staff, that kids can relate to as well. So even a counselor, I think it must be just, even in the same sense as BIPOC, going to talk to a counselor about certain issues that that person can't even understand. So I think it's really important to diversify the counselors and the teachers on the campuses as well.
Great. Mandy.
Thank you. I agree with what Tiffany said. I think we need to have administrators and teachers, and specifically probably an expert in each wellness center at the sites that really has experience, whether that be firsthand or dedicated career to specializing in the needs of these students. I think tactically we should have gender neutral bathrooms to make them feel comfortable if they're trans, for example. I think that we definitely need to do some training and education at the student body level. I recently read a great book. It's called This Is How It Always Is, and it's about the journey of a family who has a transgender child, and it's complicated. And if you don't read and educate and try and understand and empathize, you can't grow and understand. And it's, understand the complexities and the needs of people who, from all walks of life for that matter. So gender neutral bathrooms, and then also sports programs, making sure that they feel like they have a space to be in sports programs, no matter who or what they are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, let's see. How about we're going to start this time with Brandon. Okay, so the question is, what impact do you think the move to rename Drake High is going to have on the district, and having that happen at the same time as trying to pass a renewal of the parcel tax? Do you support the name change? Do you see them being connected or having any impact?
I really don't see them connected at all. The money is not going to come out of district funding per board policy rules, and also the money is not going to be coming from the school either. It's going to come from donations, fundraising. grants specific to the name change. So these to me are two separate items. I'm 100% for the name change. I am someone, I've told the story before, certainly of how when I was at Drake High School, San Marin playing basketball there, getting called the N-word. Wow. I mean, while most of African Americans they hold a slave owner's last name. My last name is Johnson. And while I'm wearing a slave trader on my chest, right? So literally everything in that moment, if you can imagine a 17-year-old being called the N-word, having that slave owner's last name and a slave trader on my chest, literally everything in the environment is telling you in that moment what you are, which is, subhuman to the white supremacist eye. So
Yep.
I am completely for removing that. Oh, is that time?
That's the cue. Sorry. Karen, and sorry.
So impact of renaming Drake on passing Measure M, not related, apples and oranges. Because the parcel tax has to do with renewing, straight renewal, no extra money. We've been paying it since 1982. And as I've said before, yes, there's a 3% accelerator like just about every other tax has, parcel tax has. It's unfortunate that the idea of the name change, which hasn't been changed, that people are jumping to conclusions and making this such a divided issue. Am I supposed to stop?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. But it's a process that we are going through, and there have been many forums, and I think the more people find out about the forums, they claim that they haven't been involved, but there's opportunity to be involved, and we want to hear from the community. And that community includes students, staffing, alumni, people who simply live in the community. Not related.
Thank you. Okay. I think the intent behind that question was, do you think that will affect how people vote? Because if you're for the name, I don't know. So Tiffany, you get to figure it out.
Well, I would hope it wouldn't, because I agree they are two completely different subjects, two different things out there, and the parcel tax is just enhancing the education that we're already providing, and we can't afford to lose that right now. Otherwise, major cuts will happen to the district, and so there's 5 high schools, and this is it's apples and oranges to me. So I don't know how the high school name change. I don't know how the two are correlating. The high school name change, the students want it, the teachers wanted it. I support them. I also think that there were a lot of listening sessions. I think what I did hear on some of the listening sessions is that people felt left out. But I do know they were offered, they were sent out in emails. So I don't know what's next. Maybe I'll know if I'm on the board.
Thank you. Mandy, name change, parcel tax.
Yes, so the parcel tax Measure M is, like Karen said, a straight renewal of current taxes. There is no increase, and it simply has to pass. It represents 17% of our school's budget, $16 million. And if it does not pass, we will lose all types of programs and that our kids enjoy today and contributes to the robust education that we're giving them. I think that where the confusion comes in is that there are community members who have felt left out of the process. The district has been overt with the process. However, it could have been louder and it could have been more at the forefront. And I think the challenge comes in and it shouldn't, because there is no confusion between the two issues, but it has perhaps become confusing because people that feel left out of the process feel that now they might, take it out on Measure M, which should absolutely not happen. These are two separate issues, and the children should not be penalized because of the potential name change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie?
Generally, when we're trying to pass a parcel tax, we want to get the accurate information out. We were talking earlier about the public community schools understanding our budget situation and how few people really understand. And so if you have a controversy, it distracts that process. That's probably the only concern. It shouldn't impact it. It's very different. I'm sorry to see the divisiveness that it has caused, but it's revealing a lot of people's how they really look at things, and it's really hit a chord. And so I don't think it's going to affect the parcel tax. I have more faith in our community than that. My hope is that this conversation is going to help the community and help our students, because it's making a lot of people really look deep and hard at what is really happening. And I have to I have what to say. When I read Brandon's article before this whole thing got started, it's so compelling, the pain on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Karen on this one. Regarding COVID, what policies would you support relating to long distance learning versus in-person learning, mask wearing, and student and teacher safety? Oh, you just muted yourself. Yep, you're good.
Sorry about that. Well, they're not really policies necessarily that we implement or create. We follow the policies that are given to us by the state and by our local county and local health services. And that's what we form our policies, I guess is what you would call them, but how we operate, our list of operations of how the schools would take place. We're going to follow the safest measures that are dictated by those services in order to keep everyone safe. Of course, there's going to be mask wearing. Of course, there's going to be social distancing. And yes, there's going to be fewer kids in the classroom than is normal. We have to keep these kids safe, not only just to keep them safe in the schools, but they're going to go back out into the community, back to their homes, back to their grandparents, back into stores and gyms. We have to maintain the safest measures possible.
Tiffany, your feelings on COVID?
Can you repeat the question, please?
You bet. What policies would you support relating to long distance learning versus in-person learning regarding mask wearing and student and teacher safety?
Okay. I would support whatever is safest. I have a junior and she would love to be in person. And so I think, we talk about it. I talk about it with her and we talk about, what tier we're in. And she's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so, looking over what the school board sends out, what they're getting from the state, I'm for it as long as it's safe. And because the distance learning, I think, is really hard. I never thought I would hear my 16-year-old say she had too much screen time. But at the end of the day, she's wiped out and because she's in front of the screen all day. So it's really, right now, I think it's just a really challenging time. And I think the sooner kids can get back safely, I think would be really great for their mental health and mental well-being.
Great, thank you. Mandy?
Thank you. Well, there's, MCOE has a 30-point plan in place to return to school, and then each school needs to follow a school site specific protection plan that they must meet the checklist of to return to school. And then there's also a Marin protocol summary and that's in place if there's action required in case of an outbreak or a cohort having cases. So there's pretty specific plans and policies in place that would need to be followed to ensure the safety of students and teachers. And I think if that can be met, that a return to classroom in some regard would be really fantastic for everyone if it is safe. There's been studies that have cited 1 in 4 young people in COVID have contemplated suicide, and I think their emotional well-being needs to be taken into equal consideration and looked at through that lens as much as their physical well-being. So I think there's plans in place to keep people safe. And if we can do that, then I would support a partial return to in-person learning. Thank you.
Leslie, do you want to tackle that?
As far as the policies I'd say I'd support what the superintendent and her team have already done. Our board supported her efforts early on with the teachers, collaborating directly with the teachers, staying ahead of the curve. They did a lot. They were one of the first in the state to actually come to some resolution with the teachers. We weren't caught flat-footed, dealt with continuing education to get ready to teach the children remotely. In terms of the wellness program, it was ramped up in a different way to address exactly what Tiffany was saying, and looking at ways to make sure that they could really keep track of how each student was doing. It was ground zero, starting fresh, and I think we're making good progress. But first and foremost, like everyone has said, health and safety of our students, our staff, and our greater community, and working hand in hand in collaboration with the public health officer, Matt Willis. Thanks.
Brandon, you want to tackle COVID?
Yeah, I think obviously, ideally, we'd like to for the kids to be in school, and the teachers would like that as well. Staying at home I think it's been tough on all of us. But yeah, health is not one of my strengths. My mom's a nurse and my stepdad's a pharmacist, but I didn't get any of those. None of that trickled down. So it would be working with the guidelines of the experts, and making sure that things are done in the safest possible way, and leaning on the most knowledgeable in that sphere for sure. But yeah, I think that everyone has done a great job, including the two board members, whipped into this scenario and making the best out of it, because it's been tough for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for our next question, we only have time for a couple more here. We're going to start with Tiffany. And the question is around community engagement. So what strategies would you employ to maintain and enhance vigorous community engagement? And how will you regularly gather meaningful impact from them to better inform your work as a member of the district board? Do you need me to read that again?
Yeah, community engagement. Okay, yeah, please. Mm-hmm.
What strategies would you employ to maintain and enhance vigorous community engagement? And how will you regularly gather meaningful input from people to better inform your work as a member of the district board?
Okay. I think to maintain and enhance community engagement, first, there has to be connection, there has to be trust. And in doing that, if we're talking COVID, doing that is having forums, having, Zoom Q&As, Zoom forums to get to know people, having an open door policy with emails or phone calls, so that when people have concerns and questions, or, students, teachers, and stakeholders, that they know that there's this open door policy for them to be able to come to me. So yeah, and having, doing something on a regular basis would probably actually be even better. So if we're in Zoom or out of Zoom, having something where it is like maybe not just board meetings where people, are coming and bringing issues. Maybe there's something else, another meeting where people get to come and they get to just have that connection. They get to express what's going on, but not on where it's all business and the board is having to make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mandy, community engagement.
Yeah, I think one thing in Zoom that could work, if we can't do it in person, is a meet the board members type of thing, where a board member hosts an in-person or forum where you can, just like this, give me your questions, and I won't know what they are in advance, and we'll have my transparency within rules and regulations that a board member needs to respect. I think being really open to two-way communication is critical and responsiveness, honestly. I have a little bit of OCD in me that I like to respond to things in a pretty timely manner. So I think, if you make yourself widely available and really do it with an open authenticity and you are responsive, you're going to get the engagement that you're hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie?
I like this question because it's an ongoing challenge. As a board member and Karen knows this, we'll get 100 emails, and it's a full-time job trying to respond to the emails, and that's not the most effective way to communicate. I also liked what Tiffany was saying. The board meetings are basically board meetings that happen to be in public, so we don't get to exchange much with the community, although we do take very careful note of any of the community comments. I think we need to piggyback more with the district, because this really is a district function that we all recognize we have to keep building. Back to getting 100 emails, there's got to be a better way of communicating with everyone, and looking at ways of getting distributing information, but like everyone has been saying, having a two-way conversation. Forums, I think maybe this is something we are finding as a benefit with Zoom. Before it was really hard to have forums. You can have forums and have up to 2 board members. And with the Zoom meetings, it would be a lot easier to meet with the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon, community engagement. You're on mute.
Yeah, I think that, there's a few ways of doing it. I obviously like, the idea, well, obviously not in COVID, but creating some events where you get to meet board members. I think there's opportunities to, if you're having a Zoom or something like that, to capture emails of folks that are participating, and that way you can continuously keep in contact with folks. And then I think a huge part of the community wanting to participate, and it is really projecting what the district is doing well, all the great things that the students are accomplishing, the great teachers that we have, the great staff, all the great programs, and then the community will want to be involved. If you're showing them what's going on within the district, you'll be able to get some more folks in that way, I think.
Great. Karen?
I love that, Brandon. You can write the next newsletter. Actually, our superintendent sends out a newsletter 2 to 3 to 4 times a year, depending on what all is going on. There was a lot of communication this year, as you can well imagine, with COVID, et cetera. And I think those newsletters, which go out to the greater community, all 80,000+ constituents in our district, and I think those are one of the most effective ways to communicate what is going on, how to get involved, what events might be occurring, what are the students doing. We have to be careful as board members, and Leslie referenced this. We are here as ears, but it's not necessarily for a one-on-one engagement. We are one member of a board, of a 5-person board. And I don't want to give any misrepresentation to community members thinking that they have a special, like, can you bring this up at the next board meeting, or can you talk to the superintendent about that? So it's a board decision.
Okay, thank you. I am not sure if we have time for one last question, but I'm going to go for it. I think we do, because it's a good one. Okay, so, and for this one, they were all good ones. All your answers were excellent as well. I just want to put that out there. We're going to start with Mandy for this one, and I sincerely mean that. You guys are all amazing. Okay, the question, this is about bullying. What programs will you advocate to address bullying and cyberbullying? And adding to that, recent news regarding the targeting of Marin Jewish students ongoing. What ideas do you have to work with both the students and their families to address these ongoing issues?
Yeah, it's distressing to say the least what's been going on lately, and it's very close to my heart. As I mentioned earlier, my daughter has been quite involved with a lot of this work. and she's currently on the Racial Justice Task Force, and she had the opportunity to speak to Principal Sondheim about her concerns of how some of these things were being handled. And I think, first and foremost, the administration has to be always aware of, acknowledging, open to hearing what bullying is going on so they can address it. And not every situation is the same, and they all have to be considered, in and of their own right. Sometimes the current anti-Semitic stuff that's been going on through a Redwood student account, hypothetically, is tough to manage because it's hard to find proof. So thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, this is incredibly distressing. And I'm trying to remember, can you repeat the question? Which part of it? I'm sorry.
So what programs will you advocate to address bullying and cyberbullying?
Okay.
And what will you do to work with students and their families?
Right. So that it's some of the programs we have in place, but expanding them. And bullying is something that the district's been dealing with, in previous years, but now with this issue with the anti-Semitism, it's just over the top. It's very, very difficult because we have no control or purview over Twitter. As the district is doing as much as we can, and yet it's still occurring. So it comes down to, I think, from hearing from some of the administrators, the more we can support our principals and their staff to develop inclusivity and to work on programs with the many students that we have that are not behaving this way, and to help support the families and our students that don't feel safe, it's going to have to be a completely comprehensive approach.
Thank you. Brandon?
Yeah, super distressing stuff. Yeah, I was one of the folks that account followed on Instagram, which was creepy. I don't know if they know that I have Jewish heritage, or whether whether it's because I'm, I don't know, an advocate or what, but it was just, sent chills down my spine at 11:30 at night. But I think this is why, what I hope is that the task force really gets into intersectionality and make sure that we're addressing anti-Semitism, make sure that we're addressing LGBTQ plus issues, making sure that it is, making sure that it's inclusive, and making sure that it hits all of those areas. And there's gonna be some things that come out of the task force that we can apply down the road to a lot of different things, I think, that are gonna, because it's all very similar oppression. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully some great stuff will come out of the task force. That's my hope.
Thank you. Karen?
So 3 things that the district is focusing on this year: equity, caring relationships, and cycles of inquiry. And caring relationships, I believe, is one of the most important things that we can offer our students: a connection. The teachers are actually being trained and beyond encouraged to make sure that they are forming caring connections with their students, so that the students have a place to go to, a person to talk to when they find themselves in trouble. I think that is so critical. And us as adults, the same thing, right? We're not teachers, we're not admin, but making those connections with other students in our district as well. There are a lot of programs in place that need to be expanded. SOAR, the Ethnic Studies program, there's a no tolerance policy, and there's different disciplines appropriate. Restorative justice is always the most important, best way to do it in order to teach and to reteach, in some cases, some poor behavior.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Yeah, I think the SOAR program, I believe at least at high schools 1327, it's just like it's a group and class. It's an elective. I think changing up curriculum, like really teaching kids the history of people is really important, because the hearing about that, happening at Redwood with the anti-Semitism is really disturbing. It's, it just piggybacks on the racism that's happening to BIPOC. It's just, this is what's in our schools. And that to me is very scary as a parent, and just for all of the kids at the school, like, where did they go? I think the discipline with the restorative justice, it becomes a teaching moment. Like, how do we do that? Like, what kind of program could, come in place where we are teaching our children, it's not okay. And I also believe parent education, because if someone thinks it's okay to do it at school, it's coming from somewhere else where that language, that activity is accepted.
Okay, well, on that note, that concludes the question portion of the forum. Before the candidates make their closing statements, I would like to share some key differences about how our elections will work this year, particularly in regards to how and when you can vote. So slide 5. As you know by now, November 3rd is Election Day. So you have until October 19th to register, after which you will have to go to the elections office to register and vote in person. And due to COVID-19, the state of California has implemented new, broader voting opportunities in order to promote public safety by providing expanded vote by mail options, as well as in-person voting. Vote by mail ballots will be mailed on October 5th. All active registered voters in Marin County will automatically receive a ballot in the mail. There is no need to request one. You can start voting by mail on October 6th by dropping off your completed ballot at one of the 12 secure drop boxes located around the county. They will be clearly marked at the elections office in the Civic Center or at a U.S. post office. To be counted, returned ballots must be postmarked no later than November 3rd and received at the election office no later than November 20th. Please note that Marin County pays the postage for all returned ballots. Slide 6, please. For in-person voting, polling places will be open for 4 days, October 31st through November 3rd. There will be 29 consolidated polling places. Your ballot will indicate your assigned polling location. You can vote at the Elections Department in the Civic Center starting October 6th during regular business hours. And for more information about Dropbox and polling locations, go to marinvotes.org. Thank you. At the end of this forum, there will be a slide listing several additional websites we recommend you check out for more detailed election information. And now the candidates will make closing statements of 1 minute. We will go in reverse order of the opening statements. So we will start with Tiffany.
Thank you. I hope that you'll consider me as a board member. I want to say that my previous career has given me the gift of communication, with public relations. I can connect with a wide range of people that's timely and connective. I'm very curious. I ask lots of questions, and I really welcome collaboration. My platform will be including anti-racist policies in our district and issues of inequity, which I think are really, really important to address right now. We're at a really unique time in the world, and the district has been overwhelmed and really challenged. I believe in educational excellence. It's what the TAM district is known for. I'm a parent to a high schooler in the district, and so I'm committed to increasing excellence to all of our students, and making sure that all of our students succeed, no matter racial or socioeconomic backgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy?
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters and TAM Union for hosting this tonight. If I am elected to the board, I commit to thoroughly researching all issues from different angles and welcome input from constituents inclusive of students, parents, teachers and the community at large alike. I also commit to helping the district define priorities and aligning expenditures consistently with those priorities. I'm interested in two-way communication and transparency to instill leadership and confidence from the community. And I will be responsive to the values and priorities of our community. I think that at the end of the day, our sole responsibility is to have the best interests of the students in mind at all times. I'm from a K through 12 public education myself, and I've benefited, and I look forward to serving and giving back. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. And I went out of order with you, so I apologize. I was supposed to go in reverse, but I was on my flow here. So I'm going to go back to the reverse order, and that means I would go to you, Karen.
Okay, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to not only express my views, but to hear from those of the other candidates. I am committed to continuing to do the hard but good work of the Board of Trustees. The past year has been a time for me to familiarize myself with how the board works, how we work with the superintendent and the rest of the cabinet and teachers. It's not easy, but I'm still a fresh voice. I've only been on the board just a year. I will always keep students first. I've made and will continue to make a steadfast commitment to dismantle racist, hateful behaviors and policies. I'm focused on making sure our budget is stable with minimal impact to student programs. No impact if we can avoid any impact on the students. Quality distance learning for all.
That goes by pretty fast, I know. Okay, Brandon.
Yeah, I will second everything Karen said. I thought that was great. Yeah, I care deeply about the district. I'm from the district. I've lived here nearly all my life, 33 now, so I've been around here close to 30 years. Graduated from Drake, so this is, my parents went to Redwood, so this district's in my blood. Again, I feel like we're at a tipping point with a lot of really big issues, and what I am for is for student voices to be heard, to co-create these systems with them because they have the creative solutions and they know the issues. Making sure that that we're environmentally sustainable with our facilities and inside of our classrooms, emphasizing student wellness, restorative justice, certainly, and diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. So if you're with me, Brandon for tamdistrict.com, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us, and thanks to the candidates as well. It's great being with you again.
Thank you. And Leslie.
Well, thank you. Thank you again to League of Women Voters. We do have a great district, and we have a great district because we have great teachers, we have great staff, we have great administrators, we have wonderful parents, students, and we're blessed to have a very supportive community of public education. And that is pretty amazing when you consider that most of the greater public do not have students in our district. But that our community is suffering. Our community is going through what the rest of the country is, and it's a very uncertain time. And we are too, as a district. As Brandon said, we're at a tipping point. The board oversees the district, holds them accountable, and we listen to the community and represent the community interests. So as I look forward, I want to support public education for all the reasons we've talked about. I think I have the experience, I have the expertise and the perspective to see the district through this time. I would be honored to have your vote. And I too, Brandon, I've enjoyed this forum. It'd be nice to have it when we're not being interviewed. It'd be fun to get together, actually.
You guys can all Zoom together. Okay, so that concludes our forum. Thank you to the TAM Union High School District for hosting this event and our community outreach partner, Marin Promise. Thanks to the candidates for participating and to Connie Siegenthaler for timekeeping. That's pretty good with the clock. To Jill Simpson and Greg Brockbank as our question sorters, and Nancy Bell and Dee Dee Battori for technical support. And a special thanks to the team at CMCM TV. We could not have done this without them. A video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League's website in the next few days. And if we get slide 7, yay, for more information, that's not 7. For more information, that's it about the election. The candidates, and see, because Voters Edge, very prominent in the bottom. The more information about the election, the candidates and ballot measures, visit the League's website at marinlwd.org and click on the Voters Edge logo in the middle of the page. Here are some additional recommended websites. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, and most importantly, for voting. Good night.